Hello, boys and girls. Good afternoon from here from Mexico City. My name is Alejandro Castillo, and we have today a very, very special guest, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Mr. Karch Kiraly. How are you, Karch? I say you hello from Mexico City. How's everything in California?
Hello to everybody out there. We hope you're doing better. And obviously, we've had a pandemic going on, so things are starting to open up in California. We're getting to do some training again, and obviously, lots of some difficult issues going on these days. But we're happy to get to work on some volleyball in our gym, some lifting of weights.
Perfect. Are you back to train in American Sports Center in Anaheim, right?
Exactly. We started 2 days ago, Monday, June 1st. And so we're slowly working. It's not normal team training. It's just one person at a time with a helper. Lots of gloves and masks and things like that. But over the course of time, we hope we can get to something that looks like more normal volleyball training.
I hope so. I heard that beach volleyball is returning a little faster, right, than indoor.
I would think so because it's outdoors, but still some people have some concerns about different people touching the ball and then touching their face, so they have to be careful with that.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks a lot for being here, Karch. No voy a poder estar traduciendo toda la plática porque tenemos un tiempo muy corto que Karch nos dedica, pero solamente para la introducción estamos hablando con Karch Kiraly, el mejor jugador de la historia, un gran ganador de medallas olímpicas, tanto en voleibol indoor como en voleibol de sala, campeón mundial con el equipo de Estados Unidos como coach, medalla de bronce en Río 2016 y ahora enfocado totalmente hacia Tokio 2021. Les agradecemos mucho que estén aquí. Estamos hablando con Karch Kiraly. So thanks again, Karch, for being here. It's a really pleasure, a really honor that you accepted to be here with CONADEIP. CONADEIP is a leading sporting association of college or private college here in Mexico. So we are very honored to be here with you. So
it's an honor for me to join.
So as I told you a minute before, we can talk 10 hours about your past, about your beginnings, about your medals, your Olympic medals. So in a few minutes, can you tell us something about your beginnings, about what does mean volleyball for you, why you choose volleyball, and well, we know your history with UCLA Bruins, etc. But can you make a little speech about that?
Sure. My father grew up in Europe, in Hungary, and he escaped in 1956 after they tried for a revolution to get their freedom, and the Soviet Union, the army and the tanks crushed that revolution. So he escaped and came to this country and made a new life for himself and met my mom at the University of Michigan. They both attended school there. And he brought with him his love for volleyball. He played volleyball in Hungary. He played on the junior national team there. And he also played, of course, a lot of world football, what we call soccer in the USA. But so those were the two sports that he taught me growing up, is world football and volleyball. And I played a lot of both. I started volleyball when I was 6 years old with him, just back and forth, keeping the ball going, and eventually started playing beach volleyball tournaments, 2-on-2, and then got into high school and started playing more indoor volleyball, 6-on-6, and then, as you said, playing in college at UCLA, and eventually going on to play for the USA indoor team in a couple of Olympic Games. I played a lot of beach volleyball early, and then after I finished playing with the USA team, I got back to beach volleyball, and after retiring from indoors, and got to play for a very long time in beach volleyball also, until I was 46 years old. So I was really fortunate to play high-level volleyball for about 30 years. and really fortunate that I'm still involved in this sport and this game that I love so much. It's given me so many opportunities.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Karch. Can you tell us something about what was for you from, you started playing beach with your father, then indoor, then back to beach. But how was this transition? How was how have the player to prepare mentally and physically to make this shift?
I got an early start in beach volleyball with my dad, and I think it was really good for my mental development because back then, many years ago, they only had tournaments for all age groups. There was no junior tournaments. There were no tournaments for 18 and under or 16 and under, 14 and under. It was just, here's a tournament, anybody can play. And so when he and I first started playing when I was 11 years old, we were playing against all grown men. And I think that was really good for me because no grown man wanted to lose to an 11-year-old boy. And so they were very hard on me. They served me every time because I have to pass. My dad would set, I would have to attack. And they were never easy on me. They were as tough as they could be on me. And that was great for my development. They had no mercy. They didn't feel sorry for me. And that was wonderful. That it was also really good because I got used to playing the whole game of volleyball. And when you play 2-on-2 volleyball, when you receive, you also have to attack. Indoors, when you receive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will attack, but sometimes you will. And so playing 2-on-2 prepares you to always attack after you receive. That helps indoor players, especially position 4 players, outside hitters, be better for their indoor team.
And your specialty when you were playing beach volleyball, it was defense or blocking?
It was very intense, absolutely. We were playing lower level tournaments. There were various levels back then, novice, B, A, AA, and open, which was AAA. And so my dad and I played a lot of novice tournaments, a lot of B tournaments. We never won any of those tournaments, but we very often played late into the tournament. Maybe we would get 5th or 4th or 3rd or some seconds. We had lots of nice finishes. And back then it was 2 days for a tournament, Saturday all day and Sunday most of the day. And so we got to play a lot. And that's really good for anybody who wants to develop as a volleyball player, is to get many chances to have an opponent make you have to work hard, and many chances to play the whole game of volleyball.
Okay, great. And can you tell us who was the most challenging player you confronted when you played the beach?
Oh, well, are you talking the most challenging player during my whole beach career, which went from age 11 to age 46, or are you talking about growing up?
No, growing up, when you were pro, the most challenging, the most difficult player you confronted?
My father and I did not play the high level tournaments. At that time, you could never enter below your ranking, but you could always play up. So we could have been a novice team and we could have decided to play in the Manhattan Beach Open or the Santa Barbara Open. But that really wasn't our style. We did not want to enter just to say, let's talk, I don't know, one of the all-time greats, Ron Von Hagen or Jim Menges. We didn't want to enter the tournaments just to say, we got to play against Jim Menges and he beat us 15-1. We were not there just to get beaten badly by a much better team. So some of the great players that I'm sure nobody's ever heard of as we competed and worked our way up through the ranks. There were some good young players like Marco Ortega and Scotty Steele and lots of other ones in the lower ranking categories, in the B and the A category. And we had battles with some of them, and they certainly made us a lot better. And eventually those players moved up in ranking as I did after them.
And when you turn pro?
Well, at that time, there was no pro. It did not exist. The first professional tournament was not until I was 15 years old. It was in 1976 in Santa Monica at a beach called Will Rogers State Beach. I actually played in that tournament with my high school coach, one of my favorite coaches. His name's Rick Olmsted. He's still involved in volleyball today. He's a great referee. His daughter coaches at BYU. His son coaches at BYU. So it's a great volleyball family. And he and I played in that first ever professional tournament. But then much later, professional volleyball grew much bigger in the 1980s, 1990s and beyond. And in the 1990s, of course, beach volleyball became a part of the Olympic program. But yes, then once we got into those highest levels, of course, the great players were really challenging and really fun because of that challenge to play with. One of the greatest teams of all time, if not the greatest team of all time, Randy Stoklos and St. Smith, who won over 100 tournaments together. Mike Dodd and Tim Hovland were their great rival for a good number of those years. But then that went all the way later to a great team and eventual Olympic gold medalists, Phil Dahlhauser and Todd Rogers. And so there's no one opponent who was the very best, but there were many great players over 4 decades or more, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and the zeros. And so different decades had different great teams, and they were all wonderful and challenging to compete against.
Right, thanks, Karch. What do you think are the most important differences between American beach volleyball and Brazilian beach volleyball?
Well, certainly Brazilian beach volleyball was a very different form in the 1970s and the 1980s. It was much more finesse. Most of them didn't wear the normal like surfing bathing suit. They wore Speedos. They wore really small trunks instead, like for swim races. But eventually, of course, the Brazilians caught up quickly. Volleyball is a national sport there. It's so well followed and so popular. Both the beach version and the indoor version, they've had so much success representing their country. And so Brazil has lots of great coasts, lots of great coastline for them to train on and to compete in. And they have they have great weather, so they can play almost all year round, like many people can do in California too. And so when you have the beach and you have the weather, you have people who can do it very often, almost all year round. And a great outdoor culture, a great culture of following sports, especially world football and volleyball. And so they've done great things in promoting and building volleyball in Brazil, both beach volleyball and indoors.
Great, thanks a lot, Karch. So I have a question from a friend. He says, did the pink hat, the Speedo, and the killer loop lenses were part of a strategy, or it was just casual?
The pink hat started at one point many years ago. I had a sunglass sponsor, Ray-Ban sunglasses. That was before they even made sunglasses that you could play with. Oakley was the first to come out with performance sunglasses instead of fashion sunglasses. And so I really couldn't wear Ray-Ban Wayfarers to compete in. That would be really dangerous to get hit in the face with a ball with Ray-Bans on. But the company made me different colors of hat. That was in the 1980s when optic colors were really popular. And so they made optic yellow, like a tennis ball. I wore that some, and my partner and I, we did okay. We won some tournaments. We didn't win some other ones. I tried the black one and it was too hot. The sun just made my head go crazy. It absorbed too much of the heat. And so at one point I said, I got to try to wear all the colors. So I wore a pink hat and we won the tournament. And so I thought, okay, well, I better wear a pink hat again. I'll win the next tournament. Actually, I think I said the 80s. It really started in the 90s. But so we won a second tournament. So I stayed with it and we won again and we won again and we won 13 in a row. And then it was just a superstition that turned into a tradition. And eventually I couldn't stop it even if I wanted to. That was what I was stuck with now.
Oh, perfect, thanks. So, you won the gold medal in '86 in Atlanta with Ken Steffes.
Correct.
But which was the best partner for you? The partner with you feel more comfortable to play? Maybe Ken Steffes or maybe another. I don't know.
There is no one best beach partner that I ever played with. I was really fortunate to play with so many of the greatest who ever played, to play with St. John Smith, to play some with Mike Dodd, to play little tournaments here and there with Tim Hovland, and then later with Brent Frohoff, Kent Steffes, Scott Akatubby, Adam Johnson, Mike Lambert, and the list just goes on until I got to finish my career with Kevin Wong. And so each one of those players, and I'm sure I've forgotten some, had special things about them that were different than other teammates, but they were all special to share the court with.
Okay, thanks, Karch. At that time in the mid 80s, early 90s, whose were the athletes of volleyball you admired the most? Maybe in both beach and indoor.
Well, in beach, I already mentioned them. People like Randy Stoklos and St. John Smith, Mike Dodd, Tim Hovland, Mike Whitmarsh. And then indoors, later on, we've got Jiba was a great player for Brazil for many years. He came after me. So yeah, the list is very long, and both on the indoor side and on the beach side. Okay,
great. We have a question here from Annalisa. She says, have you ever coached any beach volleyball U.S. national team, and will you?
I have not coached any beach volleyball teams. When I was starting coaching, maybe around 2006, 2007, I helped organize a few training sessions, but I wasn't a real coach. And so, no, I haven't done much in the way of coaching in beach volleyball. Maybe someday I will. But for now, I'm really fortunate to be involved. It's an honor to be involved with our USA Volleyball Women's Indoor National Team program.
Great, thanks. Which coaches do you think were your greatest mentors in the past and in the present?
Well, I already mentioned one coach. My high school coach was a big influence on me, Rick Olmsted. He taught us so much about working hard and about building good habits to do that work ourselves without needing coaches to constantly yell at us or keep an eye on us. We had a lot of volunteer workouts. in the fall before the season started in January, and we learned great lessons there. And then I got to play for one of the all-time great coaches, Al Skates at UCLA, who coached there for 50 years, 19 NCAA titles. He's just a legend in every way. And so he was a phenomenal coach during my time at UCLA. He was incredible at studying opponents, at scouting them, and at figuring out how to take advantage of every weakness and put the most stress that we could on our opponents. And then I got to play for some great coaches on our USA indoor team. First, Doug Beal and Bill Neville, as they led us to our first Olympics in 1984. And then after that, Marv Dunphy took over. And Marv was an amazing coach also. He's still a mentor of mine, as is Doug. I seek advice from both of them and stay in touch with them. And I'm really fortunate to have been able to both play for them then and to count them as friends and mentors now.
Right, thanks, Karch. And talking about the 80s, which was, you think, the key factors for the success of the men Olympic volleyball team in the 80s, with 2 Olympic gold medals and 1 world championship in 86?
Well, I think it took 3 big factors, which are consistent with any study of excellence, whether you read a book like The Talent Code or Good to Great. There are 3 main ingredients that go into high-level performance, and one of them is great coaching. So I already mentioned Doug Beal and Bill Neville and our other coaching staff there. After that came Marv Dunphy and his coaching staff. So we had one part of that equation with some of the all-time great coaches. Number 2, we had great players. We had setters like Dusty Dvorak and then Jeff Stork. We had people who could play multiple positions. One of the all-time great players for USA, period, Steve Timmons, who could play in the middle and he could play opposite. We had another middle in Craig Buck and other ones too, who were like Doug Partee, phenomenal. Outside hitters like Aldous Berzins and then Bob Stavertlik, another opposite Pat Powers. This was before there was a libero. But so when we all joined the team, we were young and had a lot of potential, but we weren't very good. And so the third component that we needed was just a lot of really intense, high-level competition and high-level mindfulness or purposefulness practice, a lot of training. Because when we joined the team, we were 18th in the world. We were ranked 19th in the world, and eventually we worked our way up to number 1 ranked team in the world. But it took several years of lots of difficult training. We were together almost all year round in California, in San Diego. We trained probably 11 to 11 and a half months out of the year. It was a full-time program, and we did lots of competition, mostly tours. We would go to play friendly matches in Japan, and then their team would come to our country, or we would do the same exchanges with Cuba, with Brazil, with Russia, or this is called the Soviet Union then. And so we got lots and lots of matches, and we had lots of frustrating losses, some really difficult losses when we weren't quite able to figure out how to beat those teams that were better than we were. But eventually we learned from that. So we had the high-level coaching, we had a lot of purposeful practice, a lot of competition that tested us and exposed our weaknesses, and a great group of players.
Great, thank you. Karch, you have mentioned a lot of great coaches and great mentors for you. And one thing I admire the most of you is that you always say that you are a perpetual learner, that you are always learner. Can you tell us, can you share with us something of that? Because you're the GOAT, you're a legend, and you are still with this speech of, yeah, I know that, but I'm learning every day, and I admire a lot of you. I admire that a lot from you.
Well, thank you. And that's a goal of mine, to be a lifelong learner, but not just a learner, but a fast learner, a good learner, an effective learner. Certainly wouldn't say I'm the best learner, but I try to be the best that I can be. And part of that is, as I said, having mentors and asking questions and talking with other coaches. But the coaches I have found internationally, the coaches I have found in, let's say, college volleyball, they're the ones who are always looking for more knowledge. They're always, even though you would think mostly people would ask them questions, often the ones who stay ahead and are learning faster and stay ahead of their competition are the ones who are asking questions and trying to learn new things that could be added to their program to make them better.
Okay, thanks, Karch. And well, we were talking a few minutes ago about the success of the USA men volleyball program success in the 80s. Considering you have no pro league at that time and right now, I think it's it's great. I mean, it shows that you as a country don't have to have a pro league. It could be great, but it's not mandatory, right?
I think we don't have a pro league now. Many pro leagues have been tried. Many different formats were attempted, but none of them succeeded. They all failed. They were not sustainable, and they couldn't be a financial success or even a financial break even. They all lost so much money that they had to go bankrupt or be shut down. But there's a new one coming that's going to start in less than a year, next February, with the Athletes Unlimited Women's Pro Volleyball League. And yet the USA women, the USA men have had lots of success without a professional league. What our country does have, which is different than most countries, is a lot of volleyball in school, especially in college and university. And so our development league, you could call it pro league, isn't pro at all. It's college volleyball. So people play college volleyball, and they play it at a high level, both on the men's side and on the women's side. And that's good preparation for joining the national team and for going to play beyond college. We would not be nearly so successful if we had no pro league and no college volleyball. I think you have to have one or the other, and college volleyball has been huge in terms of helping our players develop, especially when they play in the stronger conferences and play against quality opponents, and they get to play and compete a lot.
And well, also a lot of American players go to play overseas every season, and that's great.
Yes, they do. After they're done with college, then they spend part of their year playing professionally in Europe, whether it's countries like Italy or Turkey or Russia, Poland, Germany, and many, many others, or it could be in Brazil. It could be in Asia, in countries like China, Japan, Korea, and others. But yes, many of the women, in fact, many more than just the national team. I think last year, about 375 American women were playing in professional leagues in almost 40 countries around the world. About 100 men were playing professional volleyball. And of course, not all of those 475 players can be on their respective national teams. Each national team only has about 25 or 30 players on it. So there are way more than just national team players who play professional volleyball all across the world.
Okay, great. And let's change a little about the conversation. Can you tell us something about the role of the coach as a mentor for a group of people?
Well, certainly a head coach has a lot of responsibilities. The head coach has to manage all the people and lead all the people in the program, even though the leading can't only be done by the head coach. But the head coach also has to manage a large group or manage a group of both staff, coaches, and athletic trainers and physiotherapists and strength and conditioning coaches and all the other things that go along with that. And then to manage the athletes who are part of the players who are part of the program. And so it's a big job. And there are a lot of coaches out there who do it well. But it's an important job to try to provide a good example. So to both lead by example in the way we behave in consistent ways each and every day, but also to lead with our words for both players and for the other staff on our program.
Okay, thanks. Karch, talking about the national team, the women's, you started in after Olympics in London, right? In 2012.
Yes, I was an assistant coach from early in 2009 until the Olympics in London. And then the head coach at that time, Hugh McCutcheon, who was kind enough to give me that assistant coaching opportunity, he went on to coach at the University of Minnesota. And when he moved to Minnesota to coach there, that created space, that created an opening for the USA to need a new coach, a new head coach. And so I'm sure USA talked to a number of people, but they also talked to me, and we worked it out for me to become the coach in September of 2012, right after the London Olympics. And so got to coach in that last Olympics in Rio de Janeiro through August of 2016. And now we were planning to compete in the Olympics this year, but of course that got delayed with all of the reactions to the pandemic and all the lockdowns and things like that. So now the Olympics are scheduled to begin next year, July 23rd in Tokyo, and we're all looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, well, you were named in September of 2012 as a head coach. You as a team got silver in London, and less than 2 years later, you won the World Championship in Italy. What does that mean at that time for you and for the team? For the first time, USA won the World Championship in women's volleyball.
All the credit goes to our players. They played a phenomenal tournament. During that 2014 World Championships, you're right. The USA women's national team has had lots and lots of success, but very few gold medals. In fact, that is the only gold medal that the USA women have won out of the major competitions, which is World Championships, World Cup, and the Olympics. We aspire to try to win our first Olympic Games next year in Tokyo. But that 2014 team came together really well. We had the players, we didn't always play with the same group. We had some small injuries during that time, but the whole group of 14 players banded together and played for each other on an amazing level. And so it was a really special experience to be a part of. It made me so happy on behalf of the women's national team, for the women's national team to win their first big title, first ever.
Okay, and well, at that point, I can think when the World Championship ended, you started to think in the Olympics, right, in Rio?
Well, what we had to think about after winning the World Championships is how to qualify for the Olympics, not how to win the Olympics, because only the host country, so for next year's Olympics, that's Japan, but all other countries have to qualify. No matter how good they are, they have to play in qualification tournaments to get ready and earn a berth in the Olympics. And so the year of 2015, the big goal of ours was qualification for the Olympics. We actually fell a little short there. When we played in the World Cup, there were two positions in the Olympics available. China won the tournament, Serbia got second, we got third, and so we did not get a berth. And that was disappointing, of course. And so then we had to refocus on January of 2016 when we hosted the last chance to qualify for the Olympics, or one of the last chances, and that was our zone, our NORCECA, our North American and Central American and Caribbean volleyball zone. And so we played in that NORCECA tournament. We got to hold that in Nebraska, and our team won that event. And so that finally allowed us to start thinking about the Rio Olympics themselves.
Okay, and can you tell us a little more about that process, that preparation process to Rio, in the mindset maybe?
So talk a little about the Rio Olympic tournament.
No, prior, the preparation, the mindset preparation to Tokyo. You earned the berth, so the preparation for Olympics.
Yeah, the preparation for Rio, there wasn't a lot of time because we didn't know until January that we were going to the Olympics, but eventually we qualified. And so then our players all went back to play for professional teams all over the world. And then they came back in April and early May, and we played the World Grand Prix at that time. But we had to choose our Olympic team, our Olympic roster during that process. But the preparation was a lot about analyzing the strengths of some of the other teams in the competition and analyzing our strengths and our weaknesses. And so we had some major things that we were focusing on to be the best we could be going into Rio, and we'll do the same for next year's Olympics in Tokyo. The difficulty is, and this is the same for every team, but every team's preparation process is very different. None of us have ever prepared like this, where we had to, countries all over the world had to be in lockdown, and volleyball players and volleyball teams had to just stop and shelter in their home. And so this is a different preparation. We look at it as an opportunity. And so we're trying to figure out the ways that we can be best in this very different situation and help our players prepare best. But right now, as we're just getting back to activity, it's not at all really about volleyball. It's about helping players get physically ready again. They've been staying in their homes. They haven't been doing that much. They haven't been playing volleyball. And so they need some time to prepare their bodies properly, to lift weights hard, to do conditioning, to do physical work. And when they make some of those deposits into the physical bank account, then they'll be more ready for when we can do training in our gym that looks more like 6-on-6 volleyball.
Yeah, and considering the club season also ended 2 or 3 months ago, the players hasn't been playing for a while.
That's correct. Many players all over the world have gone for 2.5 months or more with no volleyball. Many of them probably haven't taken that long of a break since they started as little kids. So when you take a longer rest, you need to take a longer time to come back from that rest because their bodies are away from the game for so long, away from the challenge of jumping and landing and the speed and the intensity and the explosiveness. So our focus until now has been to help our players keep as much as possible of their physical fitness, their power, their strength, and we'll hope to help them get more of that back in the next number of weeks. And then we can think more about team volleyball preparation.
So in this pandemic time, do you think what's more challenging, the mental issue or the physical issue?
I think both. I think for people around the world, nobody's ever sheltered at home. Nobody's ever stayed inside their home for day after day, week after week. For many people, that's been really difficult. I know there have been more suicides, a lot more where people are calling suicide help telephone services. It's really difficult, let's say, if somebody is an alcoholic or has an addiction to some substance. Part of many people's therapy is to get together and talk about it because it's important every day for people who have substance addictions to talk. And if they're confined in their home and there are substances around, that's a recipe for disaster. So even in just that category of people who have substance abuse issues, been really, really difficult, very challenging on the mental side. I'm not saying a lot of volleyball players have substance abuse issues, but it's in general for society in countries all over the world. That's a really difficult part of it, is the mental health side. So even if people are sheltering at home, it's important to get out some every day, to walk, to ride a bike, to run, to exercise, to get out and get some fresh air. And so that's been important. But players and coaches all over the world, we really miss just going to work. I miss coaching our team. Our players miss working together in the gym. And so we got to start that a little bit 2 days ago, and it felt wonderful just to get back to work some.
Okay, thanks, Karch. And talking about the team, how many players will repeat from the last Olympics are in this team preparing for next Olympics? There are a few, right?
Well, right now we have a number of players from the last Olympic Games, but we are very far away from choosing our Tokyo Olympic team. We're not choosing it this summer. We don't even get to train this summer. We don't know how our team really looks because we're not training as a team, and we haven't been. And that's the same for every team around the world. And so we're just trying to help everybody stay as healthy as possible. And then next year, I would imagine there will be a number of players who played in the last Olympics. We have 2 players who are Captain Jordan Larson and a middle of ours, Feluca Akinraduo Gunderson, who have played in the last 2 Olympics. They won silver medals in London and bronze medals in Rio. And so so they're going for their 3rd Olympic Games next year. But of course, they have a lot of work to do. Nobody is guaranteed a position on the team. Everybody has to keep not only staying healthy, but improving and getting much of their physical game back, because everybody has lost some in this rest period. And so we all have a lot of work to do. It's really hard to think forward about the Tokyo Olympics because we're not at all ready to even just play 6-on-6 volleyball right now.
Okay, yeah, I do agree with you. Karch, tell us something about your staff in the national team. How do you handle the teamwork, the relationship with your team, with your staff?
Well, I'm lucky to be a part of a very special staff. I think I don't know of a better staff than the one we have. We have assistant coaches Lucas Labe, who's from Slovenia. We have Erin Virtue, who is a former USA player, and she played as a setter for a little while for USA and then got into coaching. And she did a wonderful job coaching in college volleyball and also with some USA teams, youth national teams, junior national teams, all up through the age group system through what we call the pipeline, through the path to the senior national team. And then we have another former player who played with us right through 2016 as our other assistant coach, Tama Miyashiro. She was a libero for us in London, and she might have been with us in Rio, but she suffered a very serious knee injury right before the World Cup in 2015. And she immediately made the transition over. As soon as she stopped playing, she became a coach, and she was a coach with us the very next season. We also, the other parts of our staff, we have Jeff Liu, who's our performance analyst. He does a lot of statistics and scouting and data analysis. And then we have a couple of great other members of our staff, Kara Kessens, who's I guess you could call her our physiotherapist, and physical therapist, athletic trainer, and then our sport physiologist, Jimmy Stitz, who is our strength and conditioning coach. They are just a really special group of people. I'm very, very lucky to get to work with them every day, and happy that I get to see them a little every day again now, starting 2 days ago, because before we were only working like this on Zoom.
Okay, I think I admire a lot from USA Volleyball program is that the coaches in under 18, under 19, under 20, you are always rotating coaches so they can get some international experience. It's part of a plan, right?
We do try to, first of all, I mentioned Erin Virtue. She is not only involved as an assistant on our team, but she also is very involved in that path to the senior national team. She's very involved in what we call the high performance department, the pipeline, involved in tryouts for the junior national team, the youth national team, the college national teams, and others. And so very heavily involved in helping decide and hire coaches for that. And so we make it a big priority to try to get great coaching for our players who are younger, 20 and under, 18 and under, and even younger. So that's really important to give them the best coaching that they have. But it's also, as you say, an opportunity for coaches to develop too. And so Erin's taking it to a different level in terms of trying to find former USA players who now can get more opportunities to coach and work their way up through the system.
Yes, well, I got the opportunity to meet the three USA teams that came to Mexico in men's for Pan Am Cups. 6 years ago, came Sean Patchell. 4 years ago came Ron Larson. 1 year ago came Milan Sarkovic from Hawaii.
Yeah.
And they get very, very excited of that opportunity. And I really love that.
It is an exciting opportunity. And the people who coach it, like I said, they do a really nice job. They represent our country proudly and with great honor. And they a big task of theirs, a couple of them, is one, to give the players a good experience. And another is to teach them as much as possible about the things they'll need to do to get to the USA senior national team, the things they need to learn, the skills they need to build, the things that are important with our program. And so those are all, so they're trying to share a lot of that information, a lot of that knowledge, because a lot of those younger players have a dream of someday playing on the same team that Jordan Larson and Feluca Akinradawo Gunderson and all of our other players play for. They have dreams. I had dreams like that when I was on the junior national team. And so I'm happy that many other players have that dream to eventually work their way to the senior national team. And so our coaches want to give them a great experience, but also teach them what's required, the things they'll need to learn and get better at to have a good chance to be on that team.
Yeah, that's right. Karch, I have been in American Sports Center in Anaheim a lot of times, but please tell to our viewers, how is the structure of the American Sports Center? So that is a facility for both men and women's and senior and junior national teams. What's the structure of that?
So again, you're talking about the American Sports Center in Anaheim?
Yeah.
When I was on the USA men's team, our training center was in San Diego, California. Before that, it had been in Ohio, in a very different state, in Dayton, Ohio. But once it moved to San Diego is when I first tried out for and joined the team. And it was there for many years, from 1981 to 1996. And then for a variety of reasons, both the men's program and the women's program moved from San Diego to Colorado Springs, Colorado, to the Olympic Training Center there. And the team was there for about 10 years. But eventually, Hugh McCutcheon, when he was coach of the men from 2005 to 2008, he understood that training in Colorado Springs was not helping the team as much as it could. And maybe the most important factor was the very high altitude, the same high altitude you have in Mexico City. For men's volleyball, that's actually difficult because when you're at higher altitude, the serve travels farther. It goes out of bounds more. It was hurting the American men's ability to be great servers. And it was hurting their receivers, their passers, because at Colorado Springs, they would let the serve go out of bounds. Then they would go play in Japan or Italy, and they would let the serve go, and it would fall in. And so it was hurting the passer's ability too. So Hugh McCutcheon had the great idea to move the team, the men's team only, to Anaheim, where a new facility had started out just a couple of years before. But I knew some of the people involved with the new facility called American Sports Centers. And I helped them pick the flooring and some other things. I wasn't involved with the team, but I was involved with certain processes of that. And I thought that would be a great place as homes for the USA men and women's national volleyball teams. And they have a wonderful wood flooring there, but it's a huge facility. You can now, when it's fully set up for volleyball, there are 35 courts set up in there and 2 or 3 restaurants when there are big tournaments going on. And so it's a massive facility. We only need 3 or 4 volleyball courts for our training, the same for the men. But it's been a fantastic facility for us because we work there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's pretty quiet. Not many people are there. We have a great weightlifting facility and great courts. And then on the weekends, not now during the pandemic, but normally on the weekends, huge junior tournaments come in and they play on all 34 or 35 courts. And it's great to watch, even though it's busy, it's full. We can't even train there on weekends. So we only train during the week, Monday through Friday. And so that evolved, but it doesn't only have volleyball. They have badminton, they have basketball, they have futsal, they have gymnastics, floor exercise gymnastics. They have a training center for professional or college football players who want to go to the combine and do better in the physical testing so that maybe they can get drafted into the National Football League or to the NBA, to the National Basketball Association. So there are many, many things that go on there. It's been a great, great facility. And unfortunately, it had to be closed for the last 10 weeks and it just reopened 2 days ago. Today is Wednesday. It opened Monday morning.
Okay, well, I hope I can see you over there in the next month, Karch. So do we have more 10 minutes? Is okay for you?
Yes.
Okay, so please tell us something about your soft skills in training with the women team. Tell us something about your motivation skills and leadership skills leading this team.
Well, we're pretty lucky because being on the USA team is a very difficult thing. But when you are on the team, it means you've had to work very hard to earn that right. And we don't have to beg people to come be on our team. We don't have to say, please, please come. Most players who are really good dream of being on the best team our country has to represent the USA in international competition, in the Olympic Games, in the World Championships, in the World Cup. And so they all already have lots and lots of motivation. They're all really, they had to have that even to earn an invitation to our gym, because it is not easy to be on this team. There are so many good players. You get beaten regularly. It's really hard. Our competitions in normal training, we don't have that going right now, but it's really, if we just mix teams up, it's really hard for one team to beat the other team. It's really high level competition. Many of the best, some of the best players in the world. So the test is at a very high level. And so those are the primary factors, I think, in motivating is A, they arrive at our gym self-motivated. B, they are motivated by the great players across the net. If somebody new comes in and she's playing with our captain Jordan or against her, if she's playing with her, she's like, oh my gosh, she's played with this program for 2 Olympic Games. She's going for her 3rd. I have to be good for her. Or if she's across the net, she's thinking, I have to impress her. But it's not only Jordan, it's all of the players who are a part of our program. It brings out the best in our people, because you have to work really hard and be really good to have any success in our gym. And it's not easy, because everybody comes from a college program where they were the star and everybody looked to them to carry the team, to do the most work. But now everybody in our gym was a star in college. And when everybody's a star, in some ways, nobody's a star. And you all have to work your hardest, work your best.
Thanks a lot, Karch. What do you think is the little things, the fine points USA Volleyball has to do so you can fight for the gold medal?
Well, one thing we're always trying to do to be our best is we believe that we need to, in some ways, out-team other teams. That is, be a better team, a closer team, a team with more trust, a team with more unity. And so that's an aspiration of ours, but also we certainly identified some areas where we needed to get a little better in the last couple of years in terms of some of our positions and some of our attack patterns and things like that. We made it a big priority to get better with back row attack in general in 2019. We made some real improvements there. We needed to get more efficient with our attack in zone 2 behind the setter, that both with what we call the red and the slide sets or routes. And we made improvements there. And so we've put ourselves in a good position, but there are so many great teams that are also hungry to win a gold medal next year. The host Japan and China and Serbia and Italy and Turkey and Brazil and Russia, and there are way more good teams than there are medals available. There's only 3 of them, gold, silver, and bronze. And so it's going to be a great, great competition.
Well, you can bet I will cheer for Team USA.
Oh, that's very, very sweet.
Karch, considering we are here in the CONADEIP talk, as I told you, CONADEIP it's a sport organization who promotes the sports within particular private schools here in Mexico. What message do you have for the students, players who are studying in the school but also wants to play volleyball or another sports at the highest level?
Well, first of all, I love the scholastic system. It's been great for our American women to, for example, attend college and have more than one responsibility. They're a student and they're an athlete. That's why they call everybody in college who plays volleyball and all the other sports student athletes. And so they learn a lot from that. And I think you can learn that before you get to college, how to organize your time, how to take care of your responsibilities in the classroom, take care of your homework, figure out the best ways to be efficient with your learning, and then also take care of your responsibilities on the volleyball team to represent your school well, your institution. And so I think the school model for combining sports and academics is a really good one, because people learn to take care of lots of responsibilities. It's a lot of work to be a good student and a good volleyball player, but I think it's important. People become much better prepared for life after college and life after volleyball when they carried responsibilities on both sides of that equation, the school side, the volleyball side.
Okay, perfect, Karch. 2 more questions, Karch. We talked about the World Cup a few minutes ago. So as you know, since the last year, World Cup didn't qualify teams for Olympics. And I think it's a shame, because I think in the calendar, it was one of the greatest competitions, the World Cup, because 8 teams fighting for 2 or 3 tickets for the Olympics. It was a great tournament. For me, it's not more interesting to watch the World Cup in that format, in the last year format. What do you think?
I understand your frustration. The World Cup, as you probably know, is always in Japan. So the Japan men's team always plays in the World Cup for men. The Japan women's team always plays in the World Cup for women. The reason it couldn't be an Olympic qualifier is because Japan is already in the Olympics. And the rule in Olympic qualification is you cannot have an Olympic qualification tournament where some team is already in the Olympics. That happened in 2008. China, the Chinese women were already in the Olympic women's volleyball tournament. So China could not compete in the 2007 World Cup. They were out of it. And then Brazil could not compete in the 2004 15 World Cup because they were already in the Olympics as host. So they had to change the system, and the World Cup, it's always in Japan. Japan had to be in the tournament, so it means the tournament couldn't be an Olympic qualifier. So they created a new system of 6 different qualifiers around the world in 6 different countries, all on the same weekend. So in the women's side, it was China hosted a qualifier, and the USA hosted a qualifier, and Netherlands hosted a qualifier, Italy hosted a qualifier, Russia hosted, pardon?
Mexico went to Russia, for example.
Exactly. Russia hosted a qualifier, and I'm forgetting where the other one was. Anyway, there were 6 tournaments going on at the same time. And I thought it was actually a really exciting format to follow these 6 qualifiers all on the same weekend. And then a week later, the men had their 6 qualifier tournaments also. Actually, I think I said Netherlands. I was wrong on that. Netherlands did not host a qualifier. They hosted a later qualifier in January. But anyway, they had to change the system and had 6 qualifiers. And then in January, there were 5 more qualifiers in the other 5 zones. And that's how they filled all the Olympic berths. 1 host, 6 qualifiers on the same weekend in August, and 5 more qualifiers this last January. And I thought it was a very exciting system. The downside to that is, understandably, fans like you found the World Cup less important, less compelling. But to us, it was still a really important event and one we wanted to win. We played a very good tournament. We only lost once. China won all of their matches, so they won. We got second. But we were hungry to try to win that tournament. Our USA women have never won that. And so we knew that even though there was no Olympic berth on the line, it was a very important tournament for us.
Okay, well, and maybe that can change for 2024, probably.
The proposal it's not set yet for 2024, but one proposal I've seen is to maybe have a hybrid. So it would actually be, it would be like 2 slightly smaller World Cups at the same time in 2 different countries. 8 teams over here, 8 teams over here. And so here's an 8-team round robin tournament going here, another one here, and the top 2 in each separate tournament would get an Olympic berth. So the proposal is that maybe the world champion gets a berth. I don't know about that, but for sure the host, which is France, and then maybe these 2 mini or smaller World Cups, that's 4 more teams, that's 5, and then 5 Olympic qualifiers in the 5 zones in January of 2024. And then I forget how the last couple of berths might happen. I forget the rest of the model. But so they would give you 2 World Cups to watch at the same time. And I think it could be a really interesting format. And basically what they would do is look at the world rankings, and they would go world rank number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and just do the serpentine system and fill in 2 very strong fields of 8 teams that would play completely separately. I think I'm excited about it. I think it could be good.
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, let's see. So, Karch, which do you think is the biggest difference between the volleyball you played in the 80s to the modern volleyball?
And this is time for my last question.
Right.
I think the biggest change is just the power that's in the game now. The players are taller, they jump higher, they hit harder, they hit their serves harder on the men's side. So you can't, when we played in the 80s, we played with 2 receivers. There was a lot of standing float serving. There's no way you could play with just 2 receivers now, 2 passers. You have to have at least 3, sometimes 4 when somebody really hits the serve hard. And then on the women's side too, it's become much more of a power game. The players again are taller, they're jumping higher, they're hitting harder. And so I think the game has become a lot more physical, a lot more spectacular, both on the men's side and on the women's side. And I'm a fan of both those games.
Okay. Karch, which Mexican food do you love more?
All of them. I am a huge fan of a carnitas taco.
Wow.
We have a local place that has chili relleno burritos here, which is a combination of those. I mean, anything. I am absolutely a huge fan of great food from Mexico, but not just that, food from India, food from all over the food from Italy, food from all over the world.
Okay, Karch, thank you very much. Please send us a final message for all the people who are watching us.
Well, thank you very much. It's been great to visit with you. I wish you all great luck in your school, in your volleyball, and in your lives outside of those 2 and far beyond the time school and volleyball end. Good luck to you all.
Okay, hope to see you pretty soon, Karch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.